On today's episode of Zounds, the original Lingua Franca. You may have heard or even used the term Lingua Franca to refer to a language that many people speak. English is often called the Lingua Franca because it is a widespread language of trade and commerce. But the phrase is actually over 1,000 years old and has gone through a number of different meanings. The earliest documented one is a maritime language in the Mediterranean, spoken starting about 1000 BC. It was also called Sabir and Piccolo Franco, and was primarily spoken by merchants, pilgrims, sailors, and pirates. There was significant movement during this time period, with speakers of languages such as Italian, Hebrew, Arabic, Yiddish, French, Occitan, Tamazight, Turkish, and Spanish, and others, trading and transiting in and around the Mediterranean, by land and by sea. Lingua Franca evolved as a simplified language to facilitate communication in mixed language groups, such as ship crews and pilgrim communities. Which makes a lot of sense because there would have been diverse languages represented in these groups, necessitating a shared means of communication. But there would not have been one dominant language that would have been imposed upon them at the time. Now, though we know a fair bit about the existence of this language, the details of its structure are elusive. This is because lingua franca was entirely a spoken language that never evolved a written form, and it also never passed down in generations to become a primary language of speech communities. Only a handful of written examples of original lingua franca survive, totaling 306 words. The longest text is 53 words in length, with most examples being limited to 2 or 3 words only. But most written lingua franca comes from people who were representing it, rather than those who used it themselves. 17th and 18th century playwrights employed lingua franca in their works, such as Molière, who used it in Le Bourgeois Gentilhomme, and Carlo Goldoni, who used it in Impresario della Smirne. In 1830, an anonymous author in Marseille published a dictionary of langue franque ou petit mauresque. This dictionary comprises the bulk of knowledge on the detail of lingua franca. But all of these sources are several steps removed from the language as it was used by speakers directly. While original records of the language are indeed lacking, there are a number of reports from travelers who encountered lingua franca and wrote about the experience in their own languages, such as Antonio de Sousa, a 16th century theologian who wrote about a simplified Frankish language being used among Turks and Moors in Algiers, and Pietro della Valle, a 17th century Italian erudite who wrote about encountering lingua franca in Aleppo. He described it as a bastard language that was similar to Italian but had no verb tenses. Now, since knowledge of lingua franca comes mostly from travelers who observed it, there are conflicting beliefs about its structure. Some reported that lingua franca was Arabic-based, while others said that it was Italian-based, and still others say that it was French-based. Several reports use language like bastardized and broken to describe the lingua franca, and most reports refer to it as having a base language with vocabulary taken from elsewhere. And while these contemporary reports are critical to our understanding of lingua franca, it must be noted that they were influenced by the writer's awareness of language. In 1628, when Jacques de Castel called lingua franca corrupt Italian with Arabic vocabulary, that was a judgment made through his own language skills and his perceptions of a language that he himself did not use. So we truly know very little of the detail of lingua franca. But given the different reports, what is likely is that there were multiple varieties of the same communication tool in use across the Mediterranean, like dialects of the same language. There was certainly a shared simplified structure used in seafaring and trade, but the vocabulary likely varied. And given the different names that were used for lingua franca, petit mauresque, sabir, piccolo franco, there were probably regional variations that were products of the different trading routes and the language families that populated them. So what does the word franca mean in the phrase lingua franca? There are 2 proposed hypotheses. The first is that the language originally evolved during the Crusades as a way for crusaders to communicate with each other in highly diverse language groups. This language was likely based around Provençal and found use among the traders and merchants in the area between Marseille and Genoa. The second is that the word franc or franca was a generic word for foreigner or Western European, like the word English is used by the Amish for any non-Amish people, and the word Ferengi has been used to refer to white Westerners at various points in time and in different cultures. Lingua franca likely referred to the language used with Western Europeans or in mixed communities with foreigners. Whatever its genesis, the term lingua franca has, across a millennia, meant a simplified trade language, a mixed language, a language used by people who don't share a common language, and a universal language in the post-colonial linguistic landscape. But the origins as a maritime language of trade are never far away. Lingua franca was the progenitor of Polari, a language used in London markets and fairgrounds in the 18th and 19th centuries. By the 20th century, this language had come to be used in gay communities as a way of disguising and protecting speakers from hostility and legal trouble. Much of the language used in the performance art of drag comes from Polari, including the word drag itself. So when you watch any of the million episodes of Drag Race, or if you say words like zhuzh, butch, and even the word savvy, you are very likely calling back to the original lingua franca. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.